Hey guys, welcome back to Based MMA. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the new fight announcements that Dana White dropped after UFC 300. And to be totally honest with you guys, the reason why I didn't make a video yesterday talking about some of these fights, one being a very massive fight, a highly anticipated matchup, is because I was still processing UFC 300, and I feel like the UFC made a mistake of announcing these fights after UFC 300, especially like at the post-fight press conference without having an actual promo. And Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor has been one of the most anticipated matchups in the last year and a half, and then to announce it after UFC 300 at the post-fight press conference by Dana White, announcing it, beating it on a piece of paper, I thought was pathetic, man. It was absolutely pathetic. And if the plan all along was to announce the fight at UFC 300, then cut a badass promo and put it before the main event of UFC 300, and then that would actually gain traction and gain some hype. But to announce it after UFC 300 at a post-fight press conference, like, it almost felt like the fight fell kind of under the radar because everybody was talking about Max Holloway, everyone was talking about Alex Pereira knocking out Jamal Hill, and then like you announced McGregor versus Chandler right after that. To me, it didn't make a lot of sense. If anything, announce it the week after, or if you really wanted to announce it for UFC 300, then announce it during the event with a sick promo, not by Dana White just announcing it in a regular post-fight press conference. That was really lame. Maybe you guys don't really care about that, but it just shows you how much the UFC doesn't pay attention to marketing and promotion. And it's a multi-billion-dollar company. You would think they would be a little bit more badass in the way they would promote some of these fights or announce some of these fights, especially when your biggest superstar is coming back. Like, especially since Conor McGregor is coming back, you would think they would do something a little bit more special, especially a fight that a lot of people have been looking forward to, a fight that we thought should have happened at UFC 300, a fight that should have happened last year in November, December. It's taken so long for the fight to happen, and then you announce it like that. Very lame, man. Very, very lame, but it is what it is. The fight is here. McGregor versus Chandler, the fight that we've been waiting for. And there's a lot of things going into this fight. Obviously, McGregor is coming off a 3-year layoff, I guess, because he was dealing with an injury, hasn't really been fighting, has been dealing with drugs. Michael Chandler, on the other hand, has paused his career for 2 years waiting for this fight, and he's been training, he's been disciplined. Both of them are the same age. Both of them are 37. They're not very young guys. Look, I think a lot of people are going to be picking Michael Chandler to win this fight, which I understand why. I also think Michael Chandler is going to knock out Conor McGregor. However, if there's ever an opponent that McGregor can face that will find a way to lose to him, if there's ever a guy that will pause their career for 2 years and fumble it in the biggest opportunity, is Michael Chandler. I mean, we've seen Michael Chandler fumble his title shot against Charles Oliveira. We saw him fumble it against Justin Gaethje, against Dustin Poirier, fights where I thought he could have won. He shows that he has a lot of power. He always has a great first round, but Michael Chandler has terrible fight IQ, doesn't have the best chin, and he always finds a way to lose. So I think stylistically, this is actually a beautiful fight for Conor McGregor. The problem is that we don't really know how Conor McGregor is going to look, especially after not fighting for 3 years, especially after coming off a terrible leg injury. We don't really know, but stylistically, like, if I knew this was the Conor McGregor of 2019, 2020 even, the guy that fought Cowboy Cerrone, I think McGregor knocks him out. I really do think McGregor could knock him out. He's a great counter striker. Michael Chandler throws wild hooks. We've seen him get dropped by even a washed Tony Ferguson in that first round. So this is a very winnable fight for McGregor. The problem is that, how can we really trust him when he hasn't really been fighting? He hasn't been disciplined. He's been on drugs. Mentally, maybe he's not all there, because one of the reasons why I didn't think this fight was going to happen was because, Dana White had said that, what's the point of Conor McGregor fighting? Like, what's his motivation to actually keep fighting? And to me, I think he was being subtle. I think he was kind of implying, at least what I took away from his statements were, like, why is McGregor fighting? Like, we don't think he's in the best mental state to actually fight. And when you watch some of the interviews with Conor McGregor, you realize that the guy is not in a great mental state, which is not a great which is why it's not a great idea to go back into the octagon when you haven't really trained. Fighting is not something that you could do as a side hobby. It's not like, you could do a bunch of other things and then go jump back to fighting when you really haven't been fighting. No, you have ring rust. You're getting older. You deal with injuries in camp, especially when you haven't been training that hard for the last 3 years. You're coming off a leg injury. How's your confidence going to be? Are you going to throw the leg kick? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that Conor McGregor has to face. But like I said, if there's ever an opponent that I could see it fumbling, that I could see finding a way to lose, is definitely Michael Chandler, which is why this is a very intriguing matchup, right? Because obviously Michael Chandler can go out there and knock out Conor McGregor because, I mean, we're probably expecting a worse version of Conor McGregor. He'll probably still have power. Conor McGregor has always been a great counter striker, and I could see him knocking out or hurting Michael Chandler on the feet. And if Michael Chandler really wanted to win this fight easily, he would actually use his grappling. But we know Michael Chandler is a showman. He loves to put on a show. He doesn't really care about winning fights. So if there's ever a guy that I could see Conor McGregor chinning right now in his career, it's definitely Michael Chandler, which is why I think this matchup is very intriguing. I wish this fight was 3 rounds. I think that would benefit Conor McGregor more. I know that maybe some of you guys are going to say, like, okay, why does it even matter? This fight is probably not even going to go the 5 rounds. I get that, but like Conor McGregor hasn't fought in quite a while. Like, what if the fight goes to the later rounds? It doesn't really benefit him. I mean, we know Michael Chandler also doesn't have the best cardio, but the problem here is that I just don't see Conor McGregor's durability being all that great, especially coming off a 3-year layoff. So I think Michael Chandler should be able to knock him out in the first round, because we've seen Michael Chandler have amazing first round. He had an amazing first round against Dustin Poirier. I know he got countered at the end of that round. He had a great first round against Justin Gaethje, a great first round against Charles Oliveira. We saw him knock out Dan Hooker in the first round. He had a questionable round against Tony Ferguson in that first round, but he was able to get the takedown, land ground and pound shots, and then knock him out in the second round. So I think Michael Chandler is very live in that first round. I actually think Conor McGregor might start to beat him if the fight goes into the second round. That's where I could see maybe McGregor winning. But I think in the first round, Michael Chandler is always very dangerous. So I'm going to go with Michael Chandler by a first round knockout. That's pretty much what I see here. Look, stylistically, this is a beautiful fight for Conor McGregor, but it's like, how can you trust him after not fighting for 3 years and not being really disciplined when it comes to fighting? You know what I'm saying? So the other fight announcement that Dana White announced was Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier for UFC 302 June 1st, which, to be totally honest with you guys, I made a video complaining about Dustin Poirier getting a title shot, but to be honest, I prefer this than Makhachev not fighting until October. At least Islam Makhachev is going to be active. Dustin Poirier has a little bit of momentum because he just knocked out Benoit Saint-Denis in an impressive fashion. We know that, he doesn't really deserve the title shot. He just got knocked out by Justin Gaethje less than a year ago. Now he's facing Islam Makhachev for the title, but it is what it is. Like I've always told you guys, this game is not about who deserves what, but it's always about timing. It's always about timing. And if you're the only guy available to fight for the title, the UFC is going to pick you to fight for the title. And that's what happened here. Look, I know the UFC offered Arman Tsarukyan the fight against Islam Makhachev in June, but Arman Tsarukyan, being a smart guy, he's not going to accept the fight under those circumstances. Like, why is he going to rush to a camp to fight Islam Makhachev when he's the #1 contender? Why would he why would he do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would he put himself in that kind of situation? If you're Arman Tsarukyan, you're taking your time. You want to face Islam Makhachev with a full training camp, not in a rush right after a fight. So it's smart for Arman Tsarukyan to wait to face the winner of this fight for Abu Dhabi for October. And I know a lot of us were basically assuming that Islam Makhachev is going to get through Dustin Poirier. And let's be honest, like, Islam Makhachev is going to beat Dustin Poirier. Like, he could beat him on the ground. I think he could even beat him in the striking. Poirier is a dangerous boxer, so maybe he doesn't really want to test his boxing against Dustin Poirier, because then the fight becomes a lot more competitive. But I think Islam Makhachev could beat him with a wrestling, grappling, take him down, land ground and pound shots, or submit him. We've seen Dustin Poirier get submitted by Charles Oliveira. We saw him get submitted by Khabib. And Islam Makhachev is also a very well-rounded striker, also a southpaw, very, very technical striker. He has power in his hands. So I think Islam Makhachev is going to win this fight. I'm glad the fight is happening, guys, because at this point, I'd rather see Islam Makhachev be a little bit more active rather than him not fight until Abu Dhabi against Armis Yukin. I'd rather this happen. It's still a big fight. Dustin Poirier is a big name. I'm excited to see Islam Makhachev. I'm excited to see him improve. I think Islam Makhachev gets this fight done within 2 rounds, in my opinion. I think that if he really goes out there to put an impressive performance, takes down, Dustin Poirier, beats him up, submits him, it's going to be early, man. It's really going to be early. The only way I see Dustin Poirier winning is if Islam Makhachev decides to actually test his striking and becomes way too confident with his hands against Dustin Poirier, who's always a dangerous boxer, who has a dangerous left hand, dangerous right hook. I mean, Makhachev, like I said, he's also a very good striker, but maybe Islam Makhachev is very confident in his striking. He decides to test his striking against Dustin Poirier and gets absolutely chinned. That's always a possibility. This is MMA game, and one thing I've learned, covering fights and predicting fights, is that you really can never count out anybody. And like, especially at the highest level, like, you really can't count on you can't count anybody out. You know what I'm saying? We just saw what happened with Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje, a fight where a lot of people were predicting Justin Gaethje to, batter Max Holloway for 5 rounds. We just saw what Max Holloway was able to do, right? So and we saw also what Sean Strickland was able to do to Israel Adesanya. It's kind of a similar dynamic here where, Sean Strickland didn't really deserve the title shot against Israel Adesanya, but there was really nobody else for the champion to face. We saw that Sean Strickland was able to pull the upset. Maybe Dustin Poirier is able to do the same, right? Because Sean Strickland was also counted out going into that fight, was able to surprise the champion. So maybe, Dustin Poirier is able to do that against Islam Makhachev. I think Islam Makhachev is a different level than Israel Adesanya, but you never know in this game. I'm excited for the fight. I'm excited that's happening soon for June 1st, and I'm glad because it's a pretty great main event in my opinion. I'm very hyped for it. Now, the other fight they announced was Paulo Costa versus Sean Strickland. I told you guys this fight was going to happen, and a lot of people were mad because they were saying, oh, why does Paulo Costa deserve a fight against Sean Strickland? No, he doesn't. He does not deserve a fight against Sean Strickland. However, there's no one for Sean Strickland to face. Right now, we don't know what's going on with Jared Cannonier. He's already fought Imavov. Sean Strickland has also already fought Imavov. And I think this fight is awesome, man. I think this fight is awesome. Both two characters. The press conference is going to hit. It's going to be very entertaining. Sean Strickland, Paulo Costa for 5-round co-main event. I think it's badass, man. Sean Strickland, I think, is going to win this fight. He has an amazing jab. He's improving. We saw that against Dricus du Plessis, and arguably probably should be the champion. Paulo Costa also showed improvements against Robert Whittaker. Looked a lot faster on the feet. And I think this fight is going to be very, very fun. Like I said, I don't think this fight is a number 1 contender fight just because, like, if Paulo Costa wins, I mean, we already know Robert Whittaker, the winner of Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev is going to fight the winner of Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis. So I think Sean Strickland should take this fight for a big bag, get a fun fight against Paulo Costa where a lot of people are going to be tuning in. The press conference is going to be fun. You're the co-main event of a big pay-per-view with Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier. I think this is an incredible move for Sean Strickland rather than just waiting to, get an opportunity for the title. In my opinion, if Sean Strickland decides to wait, he's going to become irrelevant and the UFC is not going to care about him. So I'm glad that Sean Strickland is being active, that he's fighting Paulo Costa. I'm glad that Paulo Costa is also being active. I thought his performance against Robert Whittaker was actually pretty impressive. I know he lost, and I see him losing this fight as well because Sean Strickland has great cardio, has a great jab, great pressure style. I mean, Paulo Costa has power, but I think if Sean Strickland is able to survive that first and second round, I think he'll start to piece up Paulo Costa, similarly to what Robert Whittaker was able to do here. But I think this is an amazing fight. I'm glad this fight is happening. I'm glad that, I told you guys that this fight was going to happen. A lot of people gave me, a lot of flack for even thinking about this fight happening. But, like, when I looked at the middleweight rankings, there really was nobody else for Sean Strickland to face, right? Robert Whittaker, Khamzat Chimaev is booked. Dricus, he's not going to get it the rematch. Dricus Izzy is basically booked right now. I mean, it hasn't been officially announced, but we already know it's going to happen. So Sean Strickland, he's going to beat Paulo Costa in my opinion. And even if he wins, I don't think he's going to get a title shot. He's probably going to need one more fight and then see what ends up happening. But I think Sean Strickland, he fights Paulo Costa and then call out Kamaru Usman. I think that would be another fun fight. Get it for a big paycheck on a big pay-per-view, and then wait to see what happens with Dricus and Izzy and Khamzat and Robert Whittaker, and maybe then Sean Strickland will have another opportunity to fight for the title. I think he was done dirty I really do think he was done dirty, because I get it. You don't want to give him a rematch. He didn't have any title defenses. But at least give him a number one contender fight against Khamzat Chimaev. And then the winner of that fight, Izzy versus DDP. Because let me tell you something. If Robert Whittaker beats Khamzat Chimaev and then Izzy beats DDP, like, Robert Whittaker versus Israel Adesanya 3 doesn't really sell, in my opinion. So I felt like it was a missed opportunity to make Sean Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev and then make Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis. Because then if Israel Adesanya, beats Dricus and Sean Strickland beats Khamzat Chimaev, that's a huge fight. Now, if Khamzat Chimaev beats Sean Strickland, then Khamzat Chimaev versus Israel Adesanya is also a huge fight. Or if DDP beats Israel Adesanya, DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev is a huge fight. So I felt like it was kind of a missed opportunity. I don't know why they did that to Sean Strickland. In my opinion, Sean Strickland should have gotten the fight against Khamzat Chimaev, and then Robert Whittaker should have gotten like a rematch against Jerry Cannonier, or maybe Mavov. I don't know, but we already seen Robert Whittaker, fight for the title a couple of times, come off short. So in my opinion, I don't know why Robert Whittaker is getting a number one contender fight after getting knocked out by Dricus du Plessis and then beating Apollo Costa that hadn't fought in 3 years. You know what I'm saying? It didn't really make a lot of sense. I know a lot of people are not going to bring that up because they're excited about Khamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whittaker, which I am as well. But let's be honest, that matchup should have never happened. But it is what it is. We have a couple of fight announcements, big fight announcements. I just wish the UFC would have done a better job of announcing these fights, guys. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think of Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier, Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. I think June is going to be an amazing month for the UFC and for MMA in general. International Fight Week is going to be huge. I hope they announce Colby Covington versus Ian Gary for that Conor McGregor card. Maybe Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill would also be an amazing fight for UFC 303 International Fight Week. I don't know if Jamal Hill wants to be active, if Yuri Prochazka wants to be active, but that would be an amazing fight, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.